Today on Rethink Real Estate, we have Matt Miale. Now, Matt is the lead of a team that is the number one within all of Connecticut. Matt has a really great approach to real estate in the sense that he is a sphere-based agent. We speak about how somebody that wants to join his team has to have at least 400 contacts within their database of people that they know before they come and join. So therefore, they have a foundation in order to build on. He talks about the relationship orientation. He talks about how he's built the team out, how his philosophy of real estate has led him to do over 400 transactions in the last 12 months and up to 500 in 2022. So we talk about that infrastructure. But the other thing that I really enjoyed about Matt was running through some industry changes at the moment that we have seen, from buyer-side commissions also to the clear cooperations and the private exclusive platforms within the MLS. Again, a very good touch point when it comes to him, not only from a real estate perspective in the day-to-day transaction and relationship orientation of the business and collecting data, but also very logical approach to some of the changes that have been made in the industry. I know you'll enjoy this one. Welcome to Rethink Real Estate. My name is Ben Brady, and this is a real estate podcast aimed to deliver sales strategies, marketing tips, and business insights from industry experts and myself to build a listing-focused business for the future. Let's get into it. Matt, welcome to Rethink Real Estate.
Thanks, Ben. Appreciate it.
Now, do you get called Matthew when you're in trouble?
Very few people call me Matthew, but not necessarily when I'm in trouble. I think when somebody wants to get my attention, maybe. Yeah, but more often than not, it's just Matt. Matt's been the pretty standard way to get my attention these days.
The abbreviated name of Ben and Benjamin. Benjamin is the Jetta name when I'm in trouble, so yeah, I totally get it.
Sure. Totally get it. Yeah.
Well, I guess that as we dive into your business, I want to Connecticut marketplace. Okay. Yeah. You guys did over 400 transactions in the last 12 months. Yeah. The part of this that I'm intrigued at with anybody that does the volume that you do is your systems and your processes have to be buttoned up to another level. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I think it's a fair statement. I think though that I would add some nuance to that, Ben, because what I think people think of when they hear systems and processes are super buttoned up is they think of spreadsheets and checklists, and they probably anticipate, hundreds and hundreds of steps and, logic patterns of if this, then that. And the truth is it's actually the opposite. I think what we do exceptionally well is simplify a business that's been overly complicated. I think the reason that we succeed at the level that we do, and the reason that our per agent production on our team is 6 times the national average, is that we run a program here that takes a lot of the noise that most agents are suffering from and says, hey, that's noise. That's not a thing that's going to help you sell a house today. And I think we do a really, really good job of that. So our systems are exceptionally good at simplifying. That's what they're good at. So we take all the extra stuff, what I like to call sideline-to-sideline activity, which I use that example, that in the NFL, if you're playing football and you run as hard and fast as you can from one sideline to the other, you get 0 points. You get 0 first downs. And so in real estate, most real estate agents spend a whole lot of time running sideline to sideline every day. And they're exhausted and they're tired at the end of the day. And they feel like they did a whole lot of things that were supposed to be important, but they wound up getting no transaction. So for us, we've really defined what it means to be part of the Miale team as the things that we call the first downs. We know how to get yardage, and we focus exclusively on those things. So we measure what matters.
I really love that analogy. I think that's wonderful. So for those that are sort of trying to picture your business at the moment, can you just give us a bit of an understanding of obviously where you've come from and then obviously what you've built today?
Yeah, of course. So, I was licensed in 2006, like a lot of people in that era. I came in thinking it was going to be an easy career. I thought, wow, look at all these people making money. I'm much smarter than all of them. I should be able to do exceptionally well. Like a lot of people from 2006 to 2008, kind of got my lunch served to me, learned the hard way that this is actually a job that requires a whole lot of work and a whole lot of effort, and just poured myself into it and went headlong into the customer side of the business. That was always the part that felt the most natural for me. I was never like you hear these success stories of people that spent 4 or 5 hours on the phone, cold calling and dialing for dollars, and that was never me. My entire model from the very beginning was all about going out and engaging the world and making friends. And so I made it my objective to schedule an appointment a day. This is when I first started in real estate. The goal was to find one person every day who would want to hear me talk about real estate. That was all I was setting out to do. And so that did mean that I had to talk to lots of people, and I did have to make lots of phone calls and do lots of open houses and do lots of prospecting based activities. But I did them in a way that focused on creating relationships as opposed to just trying to find transactions.
Yeah.
Fast forward to 2011, and I was the number one agent in our office in Central Connecticut, predominantly taking lots and lots of short sale listings. Believe it or not, that was where I found lots of people that were willing to talk to me. A lot of people that were struggling said, "Yeah, you can come over and talk to me if you can help me get out of this mess. We can work together." So I got really good at helping people navigate the complexities of being upside down on their mortgage. That led to creating lots of opportunities. And so the team was born. The team was essentially born because people told me that, when you have more opportunities than you can service, you should get other people around you who can help you with that. And it's been an evolution since then. We're probably on like version, 9.0 of the Miale team now, but really, came into formulation about 15 years ago, 2010, 2011.
Well, I think that there's a part of this that obviously your meteoric rise to the volume that you're doing, and then ultimately you guys doing what you do in your marketplace. I think that it'd be fair enough to say that you're the best team in. I would go as far. Would you say you're the number one team in Connecticut?
I mean, I love to say I'm the number one team in Connecticut. Yeah, of course. Now there are a couple other teams that are always high production volume teams.
Sure.
Not to take anybody's due away from them, and they're also running pretty impressive businesses. But we for sure, by every measure, are the number one listing team in the state of Connecticut. We list more properties than any other real estate team.
And how do you put that down to as a focus? And again, this is probably a little bit of an offhanded question, so forgive the rabbit hole that we might dive down here for a second. Is that listings? Again, I come from a culture in Australia, and I moved here about 10 years ago, where in Australia and New Zealand, you can't represent a buyer. There is no buyer side commission. That is how most of the world functions. So the only way that you can make money is list the property. Sure. So that's all I ever knew.
Yeah.
And it seems to be, when you get into this business, is that the first way that people sort of say is an intrinsic sort of, gateway to listings is go and do buyer side deals and whatever it may be. How have you kept your team listing focused? Is it just through the nature of the relationships that you build? Is it through your leadership? How have you kept that?
It's a brilliant question, and there's layers to it. So, I'm gonna break it down sort of through a little bit of the Matt Miale history lesson. When I first started the team, I was told that the right way to build a team was through a specialist model. And the specialist model said that some people on your team will list property and some people on your team will work with buyers, and that you will keep the two separate and never shall they cross. And for the first 2 or 3 years of my team iteration, when we got to maybe about 130, 140 units, that was how we operated. We had, one listing agent in addition to me that focused exclusively on listings. And then we had a couple of buyers agents who would come in, and they would cold call all day. They would work on internet leads, and they would do open houses, and they would just try to find anybody that would raise their hand that would want to buy a property at any moment in time. Right. What would happen inevitably is these people would come in, because at that time I wasn't as exclusively database focused. I was definitely following more of what you see other people in the industry doing. We were just sort of scattershot, like artillery, just trying to find anybody anywhere that might pop out from behind a tree. But what would inevitably happen is a buyer's agent on my team would start to get some success, and their mother, sister, cousin, best friend, bridesmaid, whatever, would call them and say, "We want to sell our house." And that person would then come to me on my team and say, "I have a relationship with this person, and they would like to work with me to help them sell their home." And I was in the uncomfortable situation of trying to follow a model of having been taught a certain way, because I'm a systems guy. I'm going to do what you tell me to do. of trying to do the mental gymnastics of figuring out why it wasn't in the best interest of the client to work with the person that they already know, love, and trust. And so I felt that I had done two disservices. One was to the agent because I hadn't trained them to properly help that person with a need that they had in the market at that moment in time. And the second was to the client because the client didn't want to work with Matt. They wanted to work with the person that they know, love, and trust.
Yeah.
And so I scrapped that model. I just went away from it. But it was in the reiteration of the team that I realized the power in our business of relationship. And then all the studies and all the research and all the data supports it. There's nobody that can tell me that it's not more powerful to have a strong database of people who you know, love, and trust versus a gigantic database of complete strangers. We all know that the power of the business comes from the people that you know and that they trust you and that you have provided value to. And so getting listings is nothing more than having a lot of people who know you to be a person who's credible, trustworthy, and can get the job done. Because they are for sure, you may not win every deal, but you will win an opportunity to talk to them. And that's really all you can ever ask for. And so the entire focus of our business around creating listing-based relationship opportunities is never letting anyone we know forget what we do.
Right.
And forget how we do it. And so we just continually expand our sphere of influence and expand who we know. And we do that through a series of very specific methods. We host VIP client events, we host seminars, we do client giveaways, we invite people that might be a prospect to come closer to us by coming and joining us for free information sessions. We're always in the process of moving people from the far out part of the circle closer in. And the further closer in they get, the more we start to build credibility, the more that they'll call us when they have a need.
Yeah, this is a really good thing that I just want to just jump into quickly with a couple of rapid fire questions.
Sure.
So if you were to take all of your transactions from a team perspective, how many of them would be from your direct sphere of influence, like people that know who you guys are and what you do? Would you say 80%?
We study that every year. So last year was actually the lowest it's ever been. It was just under 80%. It was 77% last year.
Right. Okay.
Typically, we're running between 80 and 85%.
And how big is your overall database of people that you would classify that you have a relationship with?
Okay, great delineation there, because the database, of course, is about 80,000. So there's 80,000 names, phone numbers, emails, and addresses. Those are people that we've come in contact with over the course of the, a 20-year tenure in the business.
Exactly.
And there are sphere people. That's the difference. Those are the people that if you were to, and we define that simply by they know you. Meaning
they know who you are and what you do. Like if I called them and said your name, they would say, "Oh, real estate." Yeah. They might not be able to say your brand, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They know who you are. So the exact number, it's a great question. I don't know the exact number across the entire team. Here's what I can tell you, though, is that no one can be on the team until they have a full sphere of 400 full complete records and contacts.
Oh, that's right.
And we use the number 400 as a baseline. So somebody that comes to the team, the very first thing that we focus on in their first 90 days is making sure that they have a robust database of 400 people with a phone number, email, and physical address that know who they are. Every single agent that starts with that number says, where are they going to come from? And I say, let me see your phone real quick. Do you have Facebook? I open it up and I go, there's 3,000. There's plenty of people. People they go through this, they go through the process of trying to eliminate rather than include. And so we have to teach the agent when they first come to the team, your job is inclusion, not exclusion. You're not eliminating Aunt Sally. You're including Aunt Sally, and you're including Aunt Sally's friend that you had tea and biscuits with that one time that you went and met with them. Like, you're including everybody that you possibly can, because anybody that can be in your sphere of influence is a person that might one day have a real estate need and they might think of you. And so your job is to keep reminding them who you are. So everybody starts with 400. We have some agents on the team that have a sphere that exceeds 2,000.
Yeah, wow.
And again, those are legit. We vet that. And they are allowed to invite people from their sphere to all of our client events. And we do a lot of VIP client events. We do on average 8 to 12 a year. So those are monster events that are, as many as 1,500 people at a stadium.
Yeah, it's worthwhile. For those that are listening, it's worthwhile checking out Matt's Facebook, and we'll make sure that there's a link to that as well. So your team's Facebook is that I was looking at it before, and some of the events that you guys have recently done as well. Like it's pretty cool. It's really it's actually one of those things that a lot of people get a little worried about doing an event, who's going to show up, and all of that type of stuff. But you guys have taken it to another level.
Yeah, we have a really great events program that we run. And again, a lot of it is you started this conversation off by talking about systems and models. And, what we do really well is we recognize that the event is the least important part of the event, that we run events not to get people to show up. We run events to make it easy to talk to people, because the number one thing that real estate agents struggle with is, what am I going to say? Yeah. Hey, you got to call these people. You need to talk to them. They need to remember that you're in real estate. Yeah, but what am I going to say? Oh, they don't want to buy. They don't want to sell. It doesn't matter. That what you're trying to do is remind them that you care about them and that you're a resource for them. And an easy way to do that is to call someone and say, hey, I have 4 tickets to a hockey game this Friday. Would you like to go? Oh my God, Matt, thanks for thinking of me. I mean, it's just such a simple way to do it. And they say, we can't make it, but thanks so much. And then you follow that conversation up with a very simple, like, is there anything I can do for you right now? Mm-hmm. Do you know anybody that I should be talking to? Love to see you soon. We'll be having another event in 2 months. I'll definitely be inviting you. It just keeps the conversation top of mind.
Do you see people struggle? And again, this is probably a loaded question. Do you see people struggle within your team that first come and join with the concept of this? I really love the concept of you having that warmer touch point. You're not doing any of the cold outreach stuff. It's more so a warmer touch point that then you're building and nurturing a relationship, and you're probably not competing for a lot of business at that point, because people are just going, hey, Matt, come over and list my home. I'm thinking of selling. Absolutely. Now, the problem that I've seen most of the time in that situation, where there's a delineation between good and bad agents, or when I say good and bad, or competent and not competent, is that they can't monetize their relationship. Yeah. They don't ask that question at the beginning. Is there any way that I can be of assistance to you? Hey, do you know of anybody that's thinking of real estate right now?
This is such a powerful line of conversation, because the short answer to your initial question is yes, people struggle with this. They come and they say, I'll call anyone but people I know. And so we have to rewire how many of the agents think when they first come to the team, for exactly that point, that they're concerned about like calling people they know, because they're embarrassed, they're afraid of the rejection, they're afraid of what the response will be. So how we help them is by really empowering the agents on the team to recognize that they are providing an extraordinarily valuable service, not selling. The selling is what people are afraid of. The agents are afraid to sell to their family. They don't want to sell anything. And I stand here and say it's probably the 10,000th time. This is not a sales business. This is a service business. It's a service business. Now, there is a sale that has to happen, which is you have to sell your service at some point. But the job is service. And if you can really understand that and believe that you provide the best service and that the people that you serve are best handled by you, you never feel like you're selling anything. No. I feel bad when people don't hire me. I feel like, oh my God, I hope they're okay. I actually genuinely have a heartfelt response that, like, I hope they don't get screwed over by some mediocre agent in the market, because there's lots of them.
And the difference between a mediocre agent and you, Matt, is somebody that's going to cost them 10 or 15, 20, 30, and in some cases hundreds of thousands of dollars.
And we hear about it all the time. The industry has produced countless, mediocre and ill-equipped agents that are out there in the marketplace and casting themselves as professionals and behaving nothing like a professional. And so we really focus on training our agents to understand the value they provide and what that value really is and how important it is to the people that are out there. And by the way, if they don't want your service, that's okay too. Like we really teach our agents to understand that there is enough. It's an abundant mindset. There is enough opportunity for you to work with people that are grateful and thrilled to work with you. You don't have to chase people or convince anybody that doesn't want to work with you that they should. If they don't want to, it's cool. Move on. Go find somebody who will, because there's plenty.
Yeah, I heard an analogy the other day. Well, sorry, it wasn't an analogy. It was more so a conversation that I had with an agent. They have a property in Florida at the moment, and they want to convert it to our non-distressed auction platform in order to help provoke it a little bit and get it going. And one of the common things that we talk about within our platform is we say, hey, do you have a previous interest list? Because we typically find that the previous interest list of people that have seen the property, 25% of them will end up making an offer prior to the auction and be provoked to do something because they were sitting on their hands waiting for a price reduction, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, it's funny. The agent turned to me and goes, no, I don't follow anyone up. I'm like, well, hang on, what do you mean you don't follow anyone up? And they're like, well, if they don't follow me up, then they don't really want it that bad. And there's some merit to it. Like I had a moment where I'm like, well, you're not wrong. Right. However, you are wrong as well, because there's been many times where I've followed up that had to provoke somebody to do something in order for them to.
Well, this is the confluence of skill and service that, like, somebody that isn't ready today doesn't mean that you can't help them today or that you can't help them in the future. So, I think the idea of not following up with somebody is probably the extreme case of like, well, I just only, it's a very transactional way of looking at the industry. Okay. Totally. Whereas I'm much more on the other side of the pendulum, where I believe that it's more of a relationship building. So I will follow up, but for the sake of relationship building, not transaction. So it's just a finer way of looking at it, that like, if someone looks at a property and they don't want to buy in that moment, we will certainly keep in touch with them, only because what we want to do is foster a relationship, because our business model is build a bigger database of people who know you and trust you, because at some point in time, maybe that property wasn't right, but some other property is probably right. And we would like to be the first person they call because they've had such a good experience with working with us. And so the skill of follow-up is to not try to sell the house that they've already told you they don't want to buy. Like, that's the skill part that I think a lot of agents cower away from. They say, oh, I don't want to follow up with the guy. He said no. Well, he said no to that, but he didn't say no to real estate in general. He didn't say no to living with a house in a house. Like, he's still going to want a roof someday and a front door. Like, and you just happen to be a licensed realtor, so you ought to go help him. I think, like, you could probably do that. I will walk away from somebody that I find just to be out of the character that I want to work with. Meaning, like, if they're super unmotivated, if they're rude in any way, if they don't, want to work with a realtor, I don't spend any time trying to convince them about the merits of working with a realtor. Like, they've already decided. It's like, I've never spent a lot of time working with FSBOs. Like, it's like, you've already decided. Like, I know that's a huge business, and I know a lot of people that succeed at a really high level there. I live in the world of low hanging fruit. Like, I just rather go find somebody who wants to work with me.
It's a business under immense friction at all times. That business, but. Yeah, but I guess, Matt, final thing that I sort of want to go to on sort of data and your database and the principles of your business before I want to get onto some relevant topics in the marketplace right now or industry right now, is that you must be this is said with a lot of respect, you are a data hoarder. Like you're at an open house, somebody's walking in, are you collecting information? Where are you guys getting names and numbers to expand your business? Because it's funny, I did a business planning session with some agents that are within our brokerage, and they do, respectfully $1.2, $1.3 million of GCI, and have done like clockwork for the last 5 years. Even in 2022, where it was an anomaly year for a lot of people, is that they still did, their respectful $2.3 million in GCI. And the transaction count in California obviously is a lot lower than what yours is, based on that GCI and based on the average sale price. And they said to me, well, Ben, we want to take our business to $2 million. And I'm great. Where are you getting the names and numbers in order to expand your business further? Mm-hmm. What do you mean by that? And like, they didn't understand that the fact that they had to grow their sphere in order to actually grow their business, because you get a return on what that sphere is. Mm-hmm. So where are you getting and where are you collecting this?
I love this question so much, because this is one of the questions that every agent asks. They say, but where? And I say, well, start outside. Just walk out your front door and start there. The truth is that any human being that exists anywhere lives somewhere. You have to start with the idea. So again, this odd thing that we've done in the industry is say, I want to go as far in the funnel as I possibly can to find the person right before they're ready to make a deal. I totally get that. That makes perfect sense, except it's impossible. there's no strategic way that you can engage the world appropriately and find those people. The only thing that I think works really well is open houses. I think open houses that is retail house buying. People don't show up at an open house for no reason. They show up either because they're interested in potentially buying a house at some point in either now or in the near future, or they show up because they want to know what the value of their house is compared to the house that's on the market in their neighborhood. They're one of two. And so anybody that walks in an open house is usually somebody that you want to figure out how to be in relationship with. They may not buy that house. They may not buy at any point in time in the near future, but they are somebody that has some vested interest in real estate. So that said, on our team, we have a standard around database development. And the standard is that we call it Engage the World. I've said that earlier. And it means that you have to add 5 new friends to your database every week. So if I put that in context for you, it means one person a day. It means you need to meet one person each weekday that you didn't know before that day, that after that day, they would say, I know Ben. One person a day. Because if you did that 5 times a week for 52 weeks, you would have 260 additional people in your database by the end of the year. And if you foster the relationship through that database, I'm not talking about spamming them with a bunch of emails. I'm talking about invite them to things, make sure that you're friends with them on your social media platforms, make sure that they know who you are, that they receive items of value from you or content or invitations to events or relevant information over the course of the year. If you added 260 people in a year, which is only one per day for the weekdays of the week, just one a day, if you did the math at that and figured that a 12-to-2 ratio would show up of opportunities based on out of every 10 people out of every 12 people that are in that database, there are 2 opportunities. One that is somebody needs something and one that is somebody knows somebody that needs something.
Yeah, exactly.
40 opportunities just from making one new friend a day. Now, anybody that's in the real estate business that can't figure out how to make one new friend a day ought to consider a different career. This is a people-driven business. You have to be engaging human beings in order to build a real estate business on some level. So when people say, where do they come from? Well, I always defer back to what I call the high school yearbook challenge, because everybody always gets real squeamish around this. And they say, like, who do I call? Who do I talk to? And I go, well, where'd you go to high school? They name whatever town. And I go, awesome. Why don't you start there? Go through your high school yearbook and call every single person you graduated with. I don't want to do that. I don't want to talk to those people. Oh, they don't want to hear from me. And I go, well, then don't say you don't know. Just say you don't want to.
It's so good, Matt. That's so good.
You just
don't say you don't know. You just don't want to.
Because if you graduated with 300 people and they heard from you and it's been 30 years since you graduated, I guarantee you that they don't care what you were like in high school. And they're a lot different than they were too. But those are easy relationships for you to start. And half of those people could say, I never want to hear from you again. Well, you haven't talked to them in 30 years anyway. So what difference? And if the other half say, oh my God, Matt, it's so great to hear from you. I'm so grateful that you called. What are you up to? Well, it just so happens I'm a realtor and I wanted to connect with you and just see what you were up to. I mean, it's not that hard. Again, I started this call by telling you we simplified things. It's really not that hard.
Well, it feels like as we segue into the next topic here, Matt, is that, and I'm conscious of time and I don't want to take too much of it up of yours, but the next part of this is that, speaking of complicated, it feels like real estate from an industry perspective over the last little while, there's COVID, then there's the mad rush that ultimately happened after that. First question, quick question. You told me that 2022 was your biggest year from a transaction perspective, so in turn, biggest year that you guys have had.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you think that we will get back there, and how long do you think it will take if we do think that'll be the case?
Near impossible to predict, right? The thing that made 2022 so exceptional was the total transaction volume, right? So you had, I think it was 6.1 million total transactions, nationwide. And this year we're going to clock in at somewhere like 3.8 or 3.9, well below. So you've got 30% less transactions happening. That high watermark was obviously driven by a number of things that happened outside of real estate that forced real estate to become a thing. Those incredibly low interest rates, you have to pay attention to the demographic shift of millennials entering the marketplace at a rate that they hadn't for the decade prior to, because they were living in high rises and then suddenly evacuating the high rises and moving into the suburban ecosystem. So you had all of these conditions that created 6.1 million transactions in a single year, which gave a lot of people their high watermark. Do I think that we would repeat that? I mean, it would take external conditions to force it. I don't believe that we will repeat that just simply, on staying the course across the regular market. But real estate cycles are cycles. They do go up and down. And so there's likely to be a high watermark at some point in the future. I would definitely not predict when. I have no idea. That said, there's no question that we're facing a market with a lot of headwind right now. And so real estate agents have to have consciousness of the fact that sometimes a push is a win. If you're in the market right now and it feels hard, you're right. It's hard. That's okay. Hard doesn't, I was in the real estate business in 2008, 2009, 2010, and it was hard. Hard is okay, because the people that withstand the hard are the ones that create the habits to exceptionally expand their business when it's not so hard. Because you are doing the work of building the database and creating the relationships and solving problems for people when other people are saying that's too hard or too complicated. Yeah. So if you are the resource now, you'll win exceptionally well when things get a little easier.
It's funny, the question I've started asking people in business planning at the beginning of this year, I'm like, so what does this year look like? And it's amazing how, from a peer pressure perspective, that they believe that they tell you that they need to do more than the year previously. Mm-hmm. And it's funny how you've seen people go through even depression, I would probably be a word as they compare themselves to this anomaly of just economic conditions that they had no control over at that previous time, right. And go, oh yeah, but I did this and this thing. It's like, hey guys, we need to remove that out of the averages for the last however long. So that's right.
I think that's another one of those like examples where our industry has done a disservice to a lot of the people that are partaking, because that idea of perpetual growth consistently is that's not typical in any industry, right? So we had a high watermark. A high watermark is good. For business owners, we recognize we had a great year. Why? We had economic conditions, we had external things that created an outcome, and we all benefited from that. And now we're suffering through some of the backlash of that. And that's okay too. You can still have an exceptional business even in a down market. That's, I think, that's the part of the story that needs to be told. So when people say, but how, you say, well, set yourself up for success by doing the things that will work. And this is, again, where I say I'm a low-hanging fruit guy, why I live in a world of, I would like to work with more people who I know, like, and trust versus a bunch of strangers, because I feel like that's more of the low-hanging fruit right now.
Yeah, no, that's right. Well, and I guess that if we change the topic, there seems to be a lot of change within the brokerage community over the last couple of years, in the sense that you've got this downward pressure on buyer side commissions. Now, I haven't seen that. We operate in 30 different states within the US. The reality is I haven't seen really much downward pressure in the buyer side.
On our team, we analyzed this the minute it went into effect. We've actually seen an increase on the buyer side commission. Because the conversations became more pointed. Connecticut was one of 3 states in the nation that already required mandatory buyer agency and mandatory buyer compensation disclosure. And so we already operated by almost everything that happened. The only thing that really happened for us that changed was the decoupling of the commission. So meaning we still had to, we already had to disclose that, but the decoupling of it, where it was completely separated as 2 separate line items for a seller, created one additional conversation that our agents had to be adept at. But the interesting thing is that and I only mean that on the sell side, because we were already having, this is my fee, this is how I get paid conversations on the buy side. We were already doing that, and we were already operating with 100% buyer agency we never worked with a buyer that didn't sign up and hire us. We never showed a property until we were already hired. So a lot of those changes that was more of a speed, that was a good example of a lot of noise in the market that created a lot of distraction that caused absolutely nothing. And I stand here today saying, and there's recordings of me where I said this. I said, this is much ado about nothing. Yeah. Everybody that's out there, and I had agents on my team, Matt, you got to go on social media and make a comment. All these people. I said, I am not jumping into this conversation. It is not where I'm going. Like I don't think this is going to. We are pros. Professionals get paid. Professionals are okay telling people what they get paid. If you want to operate like a professional, you'll be okay telling people what you get paid and why, and explaining your value proposition. So we really
it kind of felt like in that period of time, it kind of feels a little bit like the AI sort of situation over the last couple of years as well, is that it's like trying to grab a falling knife, in the sense that it's just moving so quickly that the reality is that you've probably just got to stand back and just wait for it to settle and see where things wash out.
Exactly. Every time there's a lot of noise in our industry, I have always said I'm perfectly fine not being an early adopter, because I am still running the most old-fashioned real estate business on the planet and crushing it by every measure. My business is based on handshakes. Think about that. Like that's the part that like people are always head scratching when they're like, what kind of tools and tech? And it's like, no, we just shake hands. We go meet people, develop important relationships, and then we help them when they need help. That is the fundamental core of the business at its heart. And so I still very much believe that will probably be how the business plays out. Now, technology will take some of the functionary parts of the business away, some of the stuff that agents do, the typing and the sending and the email, all of that stuff will go away. So by virtue of doing less, you may get paid less, but you should be able to do more of the part that matters, which is the fiduciary part, which is the part that people really want to pay you for.
Now, final topic that I just want to sort of get your thoughts on, because I'm still of two minds in this, is that Compass has been sort of very boisterous about their private exclusive, I believe it's called, where the property sits off the marketplace in their own individual virtual marketplace, so to speak, within their own community of Compass agents for a period of time. There was a clear cooperation thing that was passed just yesterday. We're recording this in sort of the end of March, and that has sort of allowed MLSs to then allow this to happen, so to speak. Again, you've got to keep in mind is that I come from a place, and I've been in North America now for 10 years, where MLSs are not a thing anywhere else in the world. I've operated in real estate companies in many different countries, and the reality is an MLS to me was always a little bit of a foreign concept, and it was always not a very free market, so to speak, is that it's usually like every other country has a predominant platform like Zillow. Sellers choose to list their property on Zillow. They pay to do so, and it goes to the open marketplace and people can see it. So there's a part of me that I get it, what they're trying to do, but like I believe also it's contradictive in the sense that, Compass and these other companies that are trying to do these private exclusive platforms, they're trying to basically just bring more control back into, they're trying to take control from a controlling entity that's trying to control what's happened anyway. And there's this whole pissing match, so to speak, Matt, that I feel of just this control element. And then there's this talk about Zillow becoming the national MLS at the same time and all of this stuff. What do you make of it at the moment? And again, you're probably taking the approach of, hey, let's just let all this play out. And I appreciate that. So am I.
A little bit of that, but I do have an opinion. I mean, again, it's going to play out. And here's how I explain everything to the team. It's going to play out however it plays out, and we're going to be fine either way because we will adapt. We'll just adapt to whatever plays out. So I don't necessarily, I don't worry about it, but my opinion is that we have to go back to the basics, which is that whatever the seller wants and is in the seller's best interest should be what dictates how a realtor cares for that seller. And so there are many different arguments and strategies around how you can best do that. And I understand having an exclusive listing and how you might present that to a seller to give that seller confidence that that's going to give them the best outcome. I also understand the concept of a free market and saying, let the market do the bidding. And that would very well be an easy argument to understand on behalf of a seller. Ultimately, the seller's got to be able to choose. That's what a free market is. Now, I do think that the downstream impact of the decoupling of commissions I predicted this. Like, this was absolutely a very clear next condition to show up, which is that if you created MLS in order to keep everybody cooperating, then you needed to have commissions as part of that cooperation so that everybody understood. So if I put mine in, you'll put yours in, and then I can tell you what I will pay and you'll tell me what you'll pay. And that, that was what was considered a free market. That was considered, you could put $1 into the MLS, you could put 20,000, you could do whatever you wanted. Obviously, everything sort of settled in one, without collaboration. It just wound up that way because that's what we've now proven the market was willing to pay, because the market's continuing to pay it. But the idea of a private marketplace, if a seller thinks that that's in their best interest, I don't think we should, or an MLS should, stand in the way of that. I don't think it's good. Now, here's my opinion. I personally think all of this is bad for consumers. Like
100%.
More data, more information, more access, more disclosure is better for consumers. So the idea of saying, let's take compensation off the table. Let's now eliminate, let's allow people to do things over here that other people over here don't do. I mean, this is why commercial real estate is so difficult to navigate. We understand the value of the MLS was that it created a marketplace. It created the market that consumers are so accustomed to. It's very interesting to me that if consumers really understood that without realtors agreeing to share and cooperate their listings, then there is no Zillow, because Zillow only exists because they have all the listings. Like, they get the eyeballs because people go there to see what's on the market. So if you start taking that away and you create a less comprehensive marketplace, now the consumer has much less power in the market, much less negotiating power. Ultimately, that will probably drive commissions up, because the thing that equalized commissions was everybody having access to everything. That was what commoditized the service. And then agents were forced to provide more value in order to validate what they were worth. And if you commoditize the access again, or if you take it away and just make it only available to a certain set of people, I think the consumers are much less informed and have much less power in the market.
Matt, it's been a pleasure having you on Rethink Real Estate. Really like your approach to the business, and congratulations on everything you've done and continue to do. And again, we'll make sure that all your information is in the show notes so that people can reach out to you, because an absolute wealth of knowledge. And anybody that needs the best agent or the best team within Connecticut, they can reach out to Matt for sure. So thanks again.
Ben. This has been an absolute pleasure. Love talking shop. Love the show. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks again. So about 75% of our audience hasn't liked, followed, or subscribed to our podcast. It would mean the world to us, and it would help this podcast more than you know to expand our reach if you were to like, follow, or subscribe on any of the platforms that you're watching or listening on. Thanks again.